Now let's begin with the concept of hybridization and the shapes and relative strength of bonds. Now in order to form strong bond between the central metal ion and the ligands, the overlap of metal orbitals with the ligand should be highly effective. And for this purpose, the atomic orbitals of the metal undergo hybridization to form a new set of equivalent orbitals with equal energy and definite directional properties. So, we can define hybridization. It is the process of mixing and recasting of atomic orbitals of different energies to give equivalent orbital. The combination of s and p orbitals give tetrahedral hybrid sp3 orbitals. So these hybrid orbitals are formed by combination of s, p and d atomic orbitals. Some of the resulting shapes are shown here. The shapes may be linear, square planar, tetrahedral and octahedral. So these shapes are totally dependent on the type of the hybridization. Here in this table you can see the type of hybridization and the geometry of the molecule. sp hybridization, it results into linear geometry, sp2 triangular planar, sp3 tetrahedral geometry. dsp2 hybridization has square planar geometry, while dsp3 trigonal bipyramidal, d2sp3 hybridization octahedral, and d3sp3 hybridization has pentagonal bipyramidal geometry. In this chapter, we will mainly concern about sp3, dsp2 and d2sp3 hybridization, that is tetrahedral, square planar and octahedral geometry. Now, I already told you that in order to overcome the various difficulties, Pauling made new theory, that is valence bond theory. So what are the assumptions of valence bond theory? Let's begin with the first assumption. The first assumption of VBT is, for the formation of coordinate covalent bond, the central atom or ion in the complex provides a number of empty orbitals equal to its coordination number. For this purpose, appropriate ligand orbitals are required. See here, in order to form a bond between metal and ligand, the bond which is formed between metal and ligand, it is a coordinate covalent bond, because here the electrons are donated by ligand. That means ligand has filled orbital and metal has empty orbital. The number of empty orbital, it depends on the coordination number of metal. So these empty orbitals of metal overlap with the filled orbital of ligand, and there is a formation of coordinate covalent bond between metal and ligand. Second assumption is, for the formation of strong bond between the metal and the ligand, the overlap of metal orbitals should be as effective as possible. And for this purpose, the original atomic orbitals of the metal may undergo hybridization to form a new set of equivalent orbitals with definite directional properties. So, metal orbitals and ligand orbital, they overlap. In order to make a effective overlapping, the metal orbitals undergo various types of hybridization. Here different hybridizations are shown, and form a new set of hybrid orbitals with equal energy and definite directional properties. Each ligand must contain at least one pair of electrons for the purpose of donation and for forming sigma bond. So, as I already told you, ligand has either one or more lone pair of electron, and those lone pair of electrons are donated to the empty metal orbitals, and in this way a sigma bond is formed between metal and ligand. Fourth assumption is a coordinate covalent sigma bond is formed when a vacant orbital of metal overlaps with the filled orbital of the ligand. Such bonding is called as forward bonding. Here you can see this is the metal ion with vacant orbital, empty orbital, and this is the ligand with filled orbital. So when there is overlapping or when the lone pair from ligand is donated to the empty orbital of the metal, there is overlapping between the filled orbital of ligand and empty orbital of the metal ion to form a new sigma coordinate bond. Here the electrons are donated from ligand to metal. You can see the arrow is shown like this, and such type of bonding is known as a forward bonding. That means if the electrons are donated from ligand to metal, it is a forward bonding. But if the electrons are donated from metal to ligand, then it is known as backward bonding. We will discuss this also in next slide. The metal electrons which do not take part in the hybridization occupy the inner d orbitals, and these are known as non-bonding metal electrons. The electrons which do not take part in hybridization are known as non-bonding metal electrons. Here you can see these orbitals are taking part in hybridization, and that's why it is known as D2sp3 hybridization. But these 3d orbitals which are completely filled, they are not taking part in the hybridization, and hence these are known as non-bonding metal electrons. These electrons are known as non-bonding metal electrons, and these are also known as inner d orbitals. There is also possibility of formation of bond in addition to sigma bond. This is possible when filled d orbital of metal can overlap with empty orbital of the ligand. Pi coordinate bond will form. Such bonding is called as backward bonding. See here, when ligand which has filled orbital, it overlaps with the empty orbital of metal, then there is a formation of bond between metal and ligand. That bond is called as sigma bond, and it is called as forward bonding. But at the same time, another type of bond is also formed in which metal which has filled d orbital, it overlaps with the empty orbital of ligand. That means here electrons are donated from metal to ligand, and the bond which is formed, it is called as pi bond, and it is known as backward bonding. So in a simple word, when electrons are donated from ligand to metal, there is a formation of sigma bond, and it is known as forward bonding. While when there is donation of electron from metal to ligand, the bond which is formed is known as pi bond, and it is known as backward bonding. The last assumption, which is also considered as an application of VBT, valence bond theory, is from the knowledge of the number of unpaired electrons in the complex thus formed, it is possible to predict the geometry and the magnetic properties of the complexes and vice versa. Once the complex is formed, how many electrons remain unpaired, if we can find out the number of unpaired electron in the complex, then it is possible to predict the geometry as well as the magnetic properties of the complexes. So here we have finished the various assumptions of valence bond theory. We need to apply these assumptions on the bonding of complexes, which we will discuss in next video. Before that, just go through the spectrochemical series which is shown here, and from this you can find out which one is the weak ligand and which one is the strong ligand. Here when we go from iodide to carbon monoxide, the strength of the ligand is increasing. That means iodide is the weakest ligand, while carbon monoxide or carbonyl, it is the strongest ligand. Always remember one thing, that all halides, then ligands having sulfur atom as a donor atom and oxygen atom as a donor atom, these are the weak ligand. That means all halides, that means X, then if ligands start with sulfur and oxygen, all these are the weak ligands, while the ligands which has nitrogen as a donor atom, phosphorus and carbon as a donor atom, these are the strong ligands. So this strength of the ligand we will need for our further discussion. Thank you.